U idejama danas razgovaramo o situaciji koja čeka Europsku uniju vezanu za novi višegodišnji financijski okvir, ono što se najčešće naziva dugogodišnjim, odnosno višegodišnjim proračunom Europske unije. Ovaj put donosi se u poprilično dramatičnim okolnostima. Europa je svjesna da mora razmišljati o konkurentnosti i o obrani, a onda možda najveće pitanje koje ostaje visiti u zraku jest što će ostati od kohezijske politike na koju se oslanja prije svega istok Europske unije. U svemu tome razgovaramo sa gospodinom Siegfriedom Mureșanom, prvim čovjekom Europske pučke stranke za pitanja novog proračuna, ujedno potpredsjednikom grupe u parlamentu. Good afternoon, welcome to IDEA.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you.
How difficult is this project or negotiation of the project of new multi-annual financial frame?
Deciding on the budget of the European Union for 7 years is one of the most important pieces of legislation on which the institutions of the European Union are working now and will have to decide and agree on in the next 2 years. It is about how much money, how many funds, for which types of projects and under which conditions goes in each member state. The proposal of the European Commission for the budget for the next 7 years is 2,000 billion euros. So it's a lot of money. It's important for all member states. Traditionally, the stronger economies pay more into the budget than they benefit, and economies that still have to develop benefit much more than they pay into. Croatia has benefited much more than it paid. My home country, Romania, the same. So what I'm trying to say is, it's a lot of money. So it is important for everyone negotiating. We have to make sure that we allocate the money where it is needed. And we also have to satisfy different interests of different member states.
But talking about different interests, now we have also different topics which are new targets. We are speaking about security, we are speaking about defense, we are speaking about better efficiency of European economy, but it has all to come from the same pocket.
This is an important question. So the budget is always planned for 7 years to give predictability to beneficiaries. Now we are in the period 2021-2027. This budget was decided in 2020, before the illegal and illegitimate invasion of Russians into Ukraine. Then we did not think that we would have to do so much on defense. And defense is only a very small part of this budget. Only 14 billion euros for 7 years for 27 member states was allocated in the beginning. That's very little. That was not enough. That's about 1% of the EU budget. So now we realize that we have to do much more in the future in the area of defense. So security and defense will be, as you said, a new priority. We will allocate more than 100 billion euros there. Secondly, we know that we have to invest more in defense. In security, we can only do this if the economy is strong, if it is competitive. So we have to invest in strengthening our economy, making it ready for artificial intelligence, invest in digital, invest in energy efficiency. This is a second priority, competitiveness, because only if the economy is competitive, only then can we secure the high social standards in Europe, and only then do we have enough money to invest in defense, because we have to do more. So these are the new priorities, but we should also not neglect the traditional priorities, agriculture and cohesion.
But talking about competitiveness, there is a huge fear, mainly in East Europe, Southeast Europe, among new member states, but also we heard Mediterranean states in general are afraid that competitiveness fund will be fund just for several countries.
Yes, we have to make sure that
for the best developing already countries.
We have to make sure that this competitiveness fund helps all 27 member states of the European Union. The European Commission says competitiveness is a priority. They propose to create a big competitiveness fund in the EU budget, 400 billion euros, for research, for innovation, for as I said, make our economies more competitive, helping the private sector. That is correct. But we have to make sure that all countries can have access to this fund, because there are countries where the economy is strong, where there is a lot of innovation, research in new technologies. And if you say we are only going to allocate this fund to those who are the strongest when it comes to research innovation, then the money will go to, Netherlands, southern Germany, northern Italy, and we have to set the conditions in such a way, the objectives, that also countries like Croatia and Romania will benefit from it. We will have to say, in order to access these funds, the project has to have a component of excellency. You have to be the best, you have to invent something new, but we will also have to put some geographic targets. We shall also encourage entities to cooperate with entities from our countries, cross-border cooperation on research, on innovation, infrastructure projects which improve our competitiveness also have to be done, digital infrastructure, energy infrastructure between countries, because if at the end of the day you allocate the resources for competitiveness only to the regions which are already strong, then there will be a discrepancy even more. What I want to say is the European Union can only be competitive if we help all regions. We have the cohesion policy for the lesser developed regions, from which Croatia, my country, Romania, are benefiting, but we should not have a conflict between cohesion and competitiveness.
Is it possible?
We shouldn't have a conflict between cohesion and competitiveness. Cohesion funds should also contribute to improving the competitiveness, and the entities which will receive cohesion funds in the future will have to show in a clearer way how the use of those funds improves the competitiveness of that local regional authority. These are some of the changes that will come with the budget in the future.
On the side of cohesion, but also agriculture policies and so on, there is this discussion about this mega fund.
Yes.
What do you think about that idea? Many experts and politicians are afraid that, with mega funds, which are somehow in charge by the governments, we could destroy the most important or most traditional part of growing inside the EU.
I think these fears are justified. I share them. I have them as well. What does the European Commission propose? The European Commission says that the biggest two categories of funds which existed until now, the common agriculture policy and the cohesion policy, should be merged in one fund for every member state. And the Commission proposes that each member state receives an amount of money from Brussels, like from a cash machine, and then does whatever it wants with it. I think this approach would be wrong, because it means a renationalization of the budget. It means that each government can decide how it allocates resources. Maybe it sounds interesting for a government, but in reality, if the government in a country supports farmer more than a government in another country, we will have a distortion of the single market of agricultural products. We will have unfair competition between farmers. If the cohesion funds and the agricultural funds are merged into one fund, then inside the country, the mayors and the farmers will compete against each other for the same type of funding. I think that would be wrong. They have different needs. They should be given different types of funding, and they should be given predictability. They should be given predictability. So how? And this is what we, the European Parliament, want to do. We want a strong, distinct cohesion policy and a strong, distinct agriculture policy, each of them with separate budgets, with a legal base, with clear objectives decided at European level, same objectives for all member states, with a strong role for the regions, because we do not want the budget to become, a political instrument in the hands of a government. We want projects to be funded based on the needs of the regions. People in the regions know better than people in Brussels, what is needed. I was in Bavaria 2 weeks ago. I met with beneficiaries of EU funds, and they were telling me how precise the support and also the consultancy that they received at regional level in Bavaria was. They said that if Berlin would be in charge of assisting them with the funds, Berlin would never know the socio-economic specificities of a region and would never be able, from a capital far away in a larger member state, to provide the exact technical assistance that is needed. So a big role for the regions, clear, distinct policies with predictable budgets, because in the area of cohesion, cohesion is an investment policy. In the area of cohesion, you need a multi-annual predictability as well. If a government can shift money from where it wants to where it wants, that is no 7-year predictability for the beneficiaries.
From perspective of Parliament, there will be no green light for mega fund.
So for the perspective of the Parliament, we think that this mega fund, as you call it, was designed wrongly, and we are not able and not ready to support it in this form. Either it will be improved to give clarity to the beneficiaries, to the farmers, to the local and regional level, involving the regional level in an obligatory way. Also make sure that the cohesion policy evolves, modernizes, does new things. So either this fund will be improved or we will reject it in the end. And we started to work on improving it.
Talking about cohesion policies.
Yes.
But we obviously need changes there also. All experts says that funds are not used most efficiently.
Yes.
In Croatia, many experts always point to the fact that a lot of money went to the infrastructure which doesn't directly help to the development, especially industrial development. So there also we will need some changes there.
Yes. So firstly, we have to make sure that cohesion contributes to the new objectives that we have, to security and to competitiveness. Security. We should invest in projects that have a dual use, civil and military. We should invest in military mobility. We should invest in cyber security. This can be done from cohesion. And secondly, cohesion should also contribute to improving our competitiveness. So what I want to say is, build a road only if it will attract private investors, if it will make the region more competitive. Don't build a road where you don't need it. But build a road where there is economic activity, where the private sector, where the investors demand it, and where, if you build a road with €1, you would generate 2 additional euros of private investments. The EU budget sounds big, 2,000 billion euros for 7 years for 27 member states. But in reality, it is a bit more than 1% of the GNI of EU member states. The budget of the European Union cannot change the world. It helped a lot in Croatia, and it is a main source of investment, but we have to use it to trigger private investments as well. So it cannot be the EU budget alone bringing development. It has to be used in a way in which it generates private investments as well.
What is Romanian perspective? How did it went in Romania considering cohesion funds? Are you satisfied, or you also have this issue of financing maybe not on long-term best investments?
So the picture is mixed. Romania joined the European Union in 2007. Romania is a country of about 20 million people, 20 million people. Between 2007 and now, Romania paid 30 billion euros into the budget of the European Union. In the same period, we attracted 100 billion euros. We paid 30, we received 100. We received 70 billion euros more than we paid in. For every euro that we paid in, we received 3.3 back. So the funds have fundamentally transformed. The country, Romania, would look different today without the funds. For the period 2014-2020, we had about 46 billion euros allocated. When the accounts were closed at the end of that 7-year period, we managed to absorb 97.8%. The EU average was 99.5%. So we were a bit below the EU average, but still, if you manage to absorb 97.8, it means that you absorbed almost everything. We had delays throughout the process. So in the very end, when the accounts closed, we managed to absorb almost everything, but we had delays in the process. So when the 7 years were almost over, we just funded almost every project which we found available. So what I want.
But talking about picking those projects,
Yes.
are you satisfied, or you also think that you maybe invested too much in infrastructure or something which is not?
Yes, we could have done better in terms of picking up those projects. So initially there were delays. The government was too slow in starting the absorption. And then, when there was time pressure, the government just funded whatever projects were mature and ready. Not necessarily the best ones, I have to be honest. So in order to fund the best projects, the selection needs to be clear, but you need to start early, because if you are under time pressure, then you would be afraid to lose the money. And you just fund whatever you find there. In terms of infrastructure, we did not allocate too much for infrastructure. Romania is a country that is, in terms of size, still significant. The southern and eastern part was underdeveloped. Also in terms of infrastructure, we have the relatively high Carpathian mountains. We still need to connect, the eastern part with the more developed western part of Transylvania with a highway over Carpathians. So the needs of the country in infrastructure are big, and they are not all satisfied. So we did not allocate too much for infrastructure. That mistake didn't happen.
On the other side, big issue in Croatia is depopulation. Depopulation, partly because many citizens use the opportunity to work abroad with joining the European Union, but also some experts say because of lack of serious investments in particularly rural areas. Your experiences with depopulation?
In Romania, the same. Young people, so there is a difference in Romania between the quality of public services in the city and in a village. If we travel to Western Europe, to Belgium, to Netherlands, to Germany, the standard of living in a city and in a village is very similar. The hospital is not too far away, the public transport is still there, the schools are equally good. In my country, there is still a discrepancy between living in a city and living in a village. This is why many young people move to cities, they get a good education, and they remain in the city, or, as in the case of Croatia, maybe they move to other Western European countries. So we have to give perspective in the villages. In the past, many people in the villages worked in agriculture. Now there is not the need for the workforce in agriculture, so we have to improve the competitiveness of rural areas by, making sure that infrastructure transport is good, by making sure that there is a digital infrastructure, by making sure that the quality of the schools, of the hospitals is acceptable, because, young educated people, if there is not a good school for their children, not a good hospital, they would not go back to the village. So
is that then the best demographic policies?
I think to improve the demographic policies, particularly in the rural areas, and to reduce the discrepancy between the city and the village, improving the quality of public services, of education, of healthcare, digitizing, connecting these areas better is essential, and also attracting investments in new areas, in the rural areas, new areas other than agriculture. Because, in the past, a big part of the population worked in agriculture. Now that is not happening anymore. It is not needed. So we need to attract investments in the rural area in other domains than agriculture. In my country, many investors came into the cities, also foreign investors. Now we need to attract them also in the rural areas.
Talking about a new perspective, what will happen with enlargement on the financial side also?
Yes,
because
yes.
If cohesion funds are not strong
Yes.
enough, then appetite for new member states, but also the strength of the union will be questioned.
Yes, no. So cohesion funds, the EU budget in the end will be a bit bigger. Cohesion and agriculture was about 60% of the budget in the past. Now the European Commission proposes it to be 44%. I think we will manage to still increase it a bit, not very much, but a bit still. So in the end, there will be a lot of money available for cohesion and agriculture. We have to make sure that it is accessible, that's in the right conditions, in the right areas. And as we discussed in the beginning, we have to make some corrections to the mechanism proposed by the European Commission with that mega fund. But what I want to say is
enlargement.
What I want to say is the following. So cohesion will still be there, and the funds are interesting to candidate countries. What I want to say is the following. We do not know now exactly when the enlargement will take place. We do not know now exactly what the economic level of development of the new member states will be, and exactly also we do not know how our policies and the rules for funding will look like. So in simple words, we cannot now evaluate how much money the next member states would need, because we don't know when they would join, how developed they would be, what the rules will be here. This is why we as the European Parliament have proposed to allocate money for the candidate countries now as candidate countries, not to reserve any money for them as future EU member states, but we have proposed to do a compulsory revision of the whole budget if there will be an enlargement of the Union. And we have done this also because as I said, we cannot quantify now how much it would cost exactly, but also because we should answer the questions when we need to answer them, not now. And I can tell you that if any of the Western Balkan countries were to join, Montenegro, Albania, maybe the Republic of Moldova, which is making very good progress, the amounts that they need would not overwhelm the European Union. So we will have to make a revision, but for sure there would not be any cuts to Poland, to Croatia, to Bulgaria, to Romania from cohesion funds, because we will have some reserves in the budget, there will be some unspent money, and the dimension of these countries, Montenegro, Albania, Republic of Moldova, is not such that it would burden us, and it will not mean that there will be less money for some of the current EU member states.
And as I understand you, those three countries are, from your perspective, the strongest candidates at this moment.
I think they are the strongest candidates. I think we should not leave Ukraine behind. But of course, when it comes to Ukraine, which is a different size, and its financial needs are also very much different. I'm looking at Ukraine, for example, and they have an agriculture sector which is competitive, which is exporting now to many countries outside of the European Union without receiving an EU subvention, without fulfilling the EU qualitative standards, and they don't have access to the EU market. They export to other parts of the world. If we would give them all, when they join the European Union, subvention for the farmers, it will be very expensive, and those farmers don't really need it because they are already now successful with exporting their goods to other countries. So what I want to say is, when Ukraine joins, I think we should have a gradual integration. So basically, for some of its agricultural sector, we say, we don't give you the subvention because you don't need it. You are competitive without a subvention in exporting to other corners of the world. You can continue to export there. We don't give you the subvention. You don't have to fulfill the EU qualitative standards, and you don't receive a permission to export into the EU market. So a gradual integration which would allow Ukraine to continue its successful business model on agriculture, and which would not burden the EU budget with big subventions to agricultural to Ukrainian farmers if they don't need it.
But this is future. Today, Ukraine is under Russian threat. From your perspective, how, and with the very dynamical situation in Washington, what do you see as perspective of that war?
So no, I think it's essential that we continue to help Ukraine. I think we all understand that, what Ukraine is doing is essential for the security of all of us.
So even if United States turn back to Ukraine?
Firstly, the United States of America, as our ally within NATO, is an essential partner for the security of many European countries. I think we should make all efforts to keep NATO and to keep the alliance with the United States of America working. So we should be in dialogue, we should look for final solutions, and we should not assume that the United States of America is completely turning its back on Europe, on our security, and on Ukraine, simply because it would also not be in the interest of the United States of America. So we should keep our American partners at the table, try to do as much as possible with them, And irrespective of this, we as a European Union have to continue helping Ukraine. Not helping Ukraine would be more expensive for us than helping Ukraine, because if we don't help Ukraine, then Russia and Putin will be at our borders, and then I would feel much more insecure. Then we would have to invest even more in our military equipments if Russia were to arrive close to our borders.
Talking about alternative war that Russia is ongoing against Europe, Romania experience with presidential elections was terrible. Maybe that's the proper word. When you look now back to to the last winter in Romania, what are conclusions?
The conclusion is that Russia wants to weaken our democracy, it wants to weaken our institutions at national and at European level. It will use all the tools that it has. What it tried to do last year in the Romanian presidential elections, what it tried to do in the parliamentary elections in the Republic of Moldova this year, in the presidential elections in Moldova last year, it will try to do in every EU member state in the future. This is why it is essential that, these campaigns which they are doing, we tackle them. We have to identify exactly whom they fund, what types of illegal funding they intend to operate with. We have to apply the law very clearly in those cases. We have to know that technology evolves and their means of manipulating the people also evolve. We have
danger is still there here.
We have to inform people very clearly about the danger. As you rightly say, the danger is still there. They will try to interfere with every election in any EU member state in the future, and we should not leave the citizens vulnerable to them. We should strengthen the citizens by informing them, by explaining them what the mechanism is, by protecting them, and by making an allies in the citizens. This is what in the Republic of Moldova the authorities did. They exposed the networks of disinformation, of propaganda, of electoral interference, of vote buying, so that people understood what was at stake and how the Russians were operating. And in the end they stayed away, and Moldova gave an absolute majority in the parliamentary elections, 50% to the pro-European party.
Talking about first presidential elections in the December last year in Romania, do you think that the voters which voted for Gheorghescu that elections, do you think that they today understand that they were manipulated?
A part yes, a part no. So Romania is a very pro-European country. We have people who voted for the pro-Russian anti-European party without those people being anti-European. They voted like this because they were disappointed by the established parties, by the previous governments. So I think some of the people understood how manipulation now operates, and they wouldn't fall victim again. But some don't really care. They are more upset with the established parties than they care about the imperfections of others, and we have to explain to them that, this pro-Russian movement is a decision which, if a country once makes, it's irreversible for many, many years. So we have to explain those dangers to the people. Some of them are understood that they are manipulated, but some, because they are disappointed with the establishment, with the government, they just don't care about the many dark sides of the anti-European movement. They just want something else. And we have to understand these people, and we have to provide, a good offer to them and solve their problems, in fact, because they are dissatisfied because of the high prices that existed in the last years, because of the difficulties which they face, and we need to provide solutions to them. Otherwise, they will just vote against the established parties, maybe even understanding that the extremist parties are risky, but maybe just wanting to try something different and hoping for better.
Mr. Mureșan, thank you very much for your time. Dragi gledatelji, hvala i vama. Bile su ovo Ideje HR.